boys and girls. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. I hope that everyone has been able to get our lessons and complete your assignments. For today's reading lesson, we're going to start with checking the answers to the questions on the back of last week's Scholastic News. So if you have your Titanic Scholastic News, take it out. If not, get it now because you're going to check your answers. I'm going to show you the back of mine and you can check your answers along with me as we go. So what I'm going to do is show you the screen that is something that you would see if you were looking on your Scholastic app, because on your Clever account, you can get into the Scholastic News just by clicking on the little app that's in your Scholastic News. So here's what the digital version looks like of the Titanic. So we're going to skip through to the back. And I have it pretty zoomed in right now. So, all right, let's check our answers. So I'm going to draw on here. It says, number one, where did about 120 people board the ship? Notice the question here, where. It starts with the word where. So we're looking for a place. And over here, I see the ship stops in Ireland, so about 120 more people can board. And when I look at where the arrow is pointing, I see that it is pointing to the country Ireland, but more importantly, it's pointing to the town of Queenstown. So your answer is for number one is Queenstown, Ireland. Number two, when did the Titanic hit the iceberg? So we have the question when. So that's going to be a date. When you're looking at each of the boxes, you can see that it says the Titanic hits an iceberg. The ship sinks soon after, killing more than 1,500 passengers and crew members. And that is happening on April 14th. So your answer for number two is April 14th. Number three, ships from the city of Halifax came to help Titanic survivors. Is Halifax located in France, Canada, or the United States? So you're choosing which country Halifax is located in. Right here I see France, but when I look around, I don't see the city of Halifax. But if I go across the ocean, I see the United States is in yellow, but I don't see the city of Halifax in yellow. I see New York City is in yellow, so it's not the United States. However, when I look here and I see the city of Halifax, but it's in green, which indicates that it is in the country of Canada. So Canada is your answer for number three. All right, if we scroll down, we can check the answers to the other articles. These first three talk about the journey to the Titanic. In paragraph 12 of the article, the word scans means letter C, special pictures. When you scan something, it's like taking a special picture. Number two, why is Ocean Gate taking scans of the Titanic? And your answer for that is letter B, to see how fast the ship is falling apart. Question three, the sidebar from ship to wreck shows A, why and how the Titanic sank. Remember, the sidebar is a text feature that's information off to the edge of an article. Questions 4, 5, and 6 have to do with the article Cross at Your Own Risk. Eric and Isa's goal was to D, get cars to slow down. Number 5, you can tell that A, city leaders liked Eric and Isa's idea. And number 6, which detail best supports your answer to question 5? So this is your text evidence. Question 5 wants to know why city leaders liked Eric and Isa's idea. Well, your evidence from the text is letter A. The city has since painted a 3D crosswalk at another school. If the city leaders didn't like their idea, then they wouldn't have painted another 3D crosswalk somewhere else. So remember, please put a star next to the ones you got correct. And if there's one that you missed, please fix it because we don't want to we don't want to leave our answers incorrect. So we are done with this article or this Scholastic News. So if you would like to keep it, give it to a friend, put it away for a rainy day, you can choose what you want to do with the Scholastic News or with the Titanic Scholastic News. This week we are going to be reading Break the Record Scholastic News, so please take that one out. And again, I want to remind you, you can get to these through your Clever account. Just go to the Scholastic app. You can watch the videos and do the other activities that go along with our weekly Scholastic News. So let me show you what this one would look like. So here is this week's Scholastic News called Break the Record. Oops. Let me make sure you can see that. All right, you can make it full screen. This is the feature article, Record Breaker. Then we have the article that we're going to focus on this week. This article is called Hurricane Hunters. So this is the article that I'm going to give you a short assessment on Illuminate with on Friday. Notice the text features in this article. It has a map of the United States with some states in different colors. There's also headings that are highlighted in bold print. There's words that are highlighted, which happen to be the words to know. So make sure that you are looking very carefully at the text features as you read the Scholastic News. So here's what you're going to do with the Scholastic News this week. Make sure you read all of the articles in the magazine. As you read, pay attention to the text features. Look at the headings, read the headings. Look at the captions, the photographs, the bolded words, the highlighted words. All of those features are there to help you understand the text that you are reading. We're going to focus on the article called Hurricane Hunters, which I just showed you on the weekly assessment on Illuminate. So after you're done reading this article, you should be able to explain to me why some pilots fly into hurricanes. And the reason I want to focus on this article is because we don't experience hurricanes here in New Mexico because we are not located near the ocean. And I think that it's important to know about different types of weather that other parts of the world experience, even though we don't have hurricanes here. And this time of year is just the very beginning of hurricane season, which means that the parts of the world that do experience hurricanes are a little bit more on guard, watching the weather very closely so that they can prepare for a storm as they need to. And in the article, the Hurricane Hunters are people that study the hurricanes by flying over them, sometimes into the storms, so they can warn others and keep other people safe. In the article, it'll explain to you what a hurricane is, how it develops, and why hurricane hunters are important. And I'm going to also show you a video about hurricanes. Since we don't experience them here in New Mexico, the video is coming from a website that is also on your Clever account. It's called PBS Media. And I'm going to show the video to you just to give you some information about what a hurricane is. So let me get out of our Scholastic News. And so we're going to watch this video just to give you a little bit more information about hurricanes.
Typhoon, cyclone, hurricane, whatever you call it, these are the most violent storms on Earth. With high-speed winds, tremendous amounts of rainfall, and consequential storm surges, hurricanes can devastate communities and even reshape the land we live on. Luckily, these storms don't form year-round near Georgia. Hurricane season peaks in the summer and early fall months. That's because heat is one of the key ingredients needed for a hurricane to form. During these warm months, as the sun beats down on the tropical oceans below, the huge inflow of heat energy leads to the buildup of large cloud formations. When an ocean's water hits 80 degrees or higher, it evaporates quickly. This evaporation produces an invisible gas known as water vapor. Because water vapor is much lighter or less dense than air, it rises into our atmosphere, and it carries that critical element with it, energy from the sun in the form of heat. As the warm water vapor rises, the air in the atmosphere cools the vapor molecules, causing them to condense back into a liquid form. This creates clouds. The heat carried by the water vapor is then released and warms the atmosphere. The rising heat can push clouds up to 10 miles high. When a large cluster of thunderstorms develops, it can create an area of low pressure due to the rising motion. Winds around this area of low pressure start to spin because of the Earth's rotation. As more thunderstorms develop and the pressure of the center drops further, air rushes in and winds become stronger. While this process continues, the low pressure center turns into a serious storm. The first stage of this kind of storm is called a tropical depression. As the storm strengthens, it then becomes a tropical storm, and eventually a hurricane is born, with an I in the center. You might have noticed that the path of a hurricane often travels up the east coast of the United States. Why is that? Well, most hurricanes form in the central Atlantic Ocean, just north of the equator. Between the equator and about 30 degrees latitude, trade winds moving from east to west in the mid-Atlantic push hurricanes in the same direction. By the time a hurricane reaches the United States, it generally begins to curve north. This is because trade winds at 30 degrees latitude, the top of Florida for comparison, now begin to move from west to east. The winds along the east coast of the United States tend to blow north, pushing the hurricane in the same direction. So, how do hurricanes impact Georgia? Historically speaking, it's uncommon for a hurricane to strike Georgia. Let's take a look at the numbers. Every year from June 1st to November 30th, the official Atlantic hurricane season, an average of 6 hurricanes develop over the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, or Gulf of Mexico. Many of these storms remain over the ocean, but about 1 to 2 hurricanes make landfall on the US East Coast every year. Of those, only 7% hit Georgia. In comparison, 40% of landfalling hurricanes hit Florida, and 16% strike North Carolina. Since 1851, only 21 hurricanes have made direct hits on Georgia. Only 2 of those 21 storms have been categorized as a major hurricane, or those reaching a category 3 or higher. So if hurricanes often travel up the East Coast, why don't they hit Georgia more often? That answer lies in the geography of the Peach State. Georgia's 100-mile coastline is tucked in between Florida and South Carolina. Because hurricanes typically don't travel due west at this latitude, a hurricane would first have to travel over the Florida Peninsula. And when a hurricane travels over land, it is cut off from its supply of warm water. This causes the storm to weaken. But even a weakened storm can cause damage to Georgia's coast. One of the most dangerous elements of a hurricane or tropical storm is storm surge. Storm surge is produced by water being pushed towards the shore by the force of winds spinning around the storm. And this tremendous rush of water often results in flooding. Luckily, Mother Nature has equipped Georgia with a natural defense system made up of 15 barrier islands and hundreds of thousands of acres of marshes. Here's how these defenses work. The islands off the coast are called barrier islands because they form, you guessed it, a barrier or wall. These islands are essential when it comes to blocking ocean waves and wind from directly hitting the mainland. They are often a shore's first line of defense against huge storms. The sand on these islands acts as a brake or drag on the waves, diminishing the strength of the storm's surge. The second line of defense is Georgia's marshes. When the sea level rises, marshes act like sponges by absorbing the excess water and incoming wave energy. While these two defenders may not be able to entirely block a storm from reaching the mainland, they are essential in helping to reduce its impact. Unfortunately, these natural protectors are disappearing. The United States loses 80,000 acres of coastal wetlands like marshes every year, largely to development, drainage, erosion, and pollution. That's about 7 football fields every hour. And barrier islands continue to see more and more development, restricting an island's natural ability to move and shift. With a reduction in defense systems, many coastal areas have turned to installing seawalls. These costly constructions are designed to prevent uphill erosion and storm surge flooding. But there's a problem. They don't stand up well against severe storms. When waves break on seawalls, their force digs away at the sand at the base. Over time, as a hollow grows under the wall, it cracks and tips over. This makes seawalls more vulnerable to erosion than natural defenses. You can see the difference with this simple experiment. Let's say that this bottle of water represents the ocean, and this plate represents a seawall. When the ocean's waves break against the wall, the water and its energy are pushed back into the ocean rather than absorbed like this sponge. Which would you rather have? So here's the big question. How can we better protect Georgia's coast from hurricanes? Well, the reality is humans often have little control over Mother Nature and her forces. But there are some efforts we can make. One of them is protecting barrier islands and wetlands from development. We can also discourage building in low-lying coastal areas that are prone to flooding. And lastly, we can use alternative methods to building seawalls, like installing living shorelines, such as native vegetation or other natural elements that can provide cheaper, longer-lasting natural protection.
Okay, so there is your video on hurricanes. So here is your assignment for this week. I'm going to show you the questions that you are going to need to answer on Illuminate. Make sure you answer the questions in complete sentences using details from the text. Don't forget everything that we have been practicing in class. So let me show you questions. Back there. All right, question number 1 says, what is a hurricane? Describe its effects. So an effect is something that happens because of a hurricane. So make sure you use details from the text when you answer that question. Number 2, how do hurricane hunters collect data on hurricanes? Data is information about hurricanes. So how do they collect the information? And number 3, what dangers do hurricane hunters face? So make sure you look inside the article, use details from the text when you can, and answer in complete sentences. With the back of the Scholastic News, I want you to please answer all of the questions, and we will check the answers during next week's YouTube video. When we meet on Zoom this week, make sure you have this Scholastic News with you because we're going to talk about the other articles. So get your Illuminate tests done by Friday or on Friday, and I'll see you either on Wednesday or Thursday for Zoom, depending on what your day is. Have a great week, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.